Welcome back. You're watching the Modi government's performance appraisal in conversation with the Coal Secretary, Anil Swarup. Okay, let me also ask you about another issue which has sort of got everyone's attention at this point in time, and that has to do with India's poor record when it comes to pollution. And of course, whether it's COP21 or any international forum, we've made it very clear that our dependence on coal will continue, at least in the foreseeable future. There's been a lot of talk around renewables, clean technology, and so on and so forth. Let me ask you about specifically the utilization of the Coal Secy, which has been further hiked in this budget. Can we expect some innovative ideas on how we utilize that money, or is it also going to be a sort of, you know, in the abyss of the consolidated fund of India?
No, I don't think so. This cess is going to be used for improving technologies, bringing in cleaner technologies, bringing in, getting renewable. Most of this money should go to renewable sector because they would require a lot of assistance to begin with. You are aware that we're looking at 1.75 gigawatts of renewable energy.
Yeah.
That's quite huge. And for doing that, there's a lot of innovative steps that will be required. And all this money should be used there. That is where it will be.
So do we have deliverables? Do we have targets, milestones that have already been articulated on how this fund will be utilized? I mean, it's almost 28,000 crores.
I don't have it readily with me because I'm not handling that, because we are giving the money. Someone else is using it. And my informal discussions with them
I would imagine you'd want to know how this money is being used, or at least being put to good use.
No, I'm sure it's going to be put to good use because that's the need of the hour. That's why this cess was imposed. And my interactions with my counterparts in the ministry there reveal that they are working very hard at it to work out a detailed plan on how to use this money.
But how do we clean up this sector? And you've often spent time talking about that issue. If I were to ask you about the next steps on being able to provide cleaner coal energy, what is your ministry doing at this point in time?
Okay, let me explain what we are trying to do. First, from 1st January this year, we took this decision that we are going to set up 15 additional washeries. All these washeries will be set up by 30th of September 2017. All coal that has ash content of more than 34% will be washed from 1st October 2017 before it goes out.
Okay.
I think that's a huge decision in terms of protecting the environment, and that's a decision we've taken. And we are working very hard towards it, and we should be able to meet the targets that we have.
What kind of benefits will that, or what will it result into in terms of cleaner emissions and so on and so forth?
First of all, the benefit would be that the ash will not fly all over the place. It will be washed. Washed coal goes out. And when it is actually burnt in the boilers, that ash will not get displayed all over the environment.
Okay.
So that washing gets done here. Secondly, it saves huge amount of transportation cost. You're reducing that much amount of coal being transported. Transportation itself creates a lot of environmental hazards, so that will get reduced. So that is what we are doing. The rest of it will be done at the power end, at the power plants end, where they're working on clean coal technology, they're working on super thermal power plants, and all these will lead to improvement in the environment.
Okay, that's good to hear, and I'm glad that you've actually put a timeline on that. But let me ask you about both your ministry as well as the power ministry. And you've often said that minimalistic regulation is required to really kickstart the power sector in India. Do you believe that we're at that stage at this point in time? I mean, Uday, while it's sort of heralding a new chapter, or once again trying to herald a new chapter in this ailing sector, there's been question marks raised even by the Reserve Bank of India on the Uday scheme.
No, I think they have all been resolved. All the issues that were raised by RBI have been resolved. You know what? Let us understand what Uday says, and it is very different from previous restructuring. I think what has been appearing in the media is more to do with debt restructuring, whereas the essence of Uday is not debt restructuring. That is an essential condition, but not a sufficient condition. What Uday talks about is how do you reduce your transmission and distribution losses. What Uday talks about is how do you improve your recoveries. What Uday talks about is how do you rationalize your tariff structure to make the DISCOMs more viable for them to continue in the long run. Right now there are states which are buying at a particular rate and selling at a lesser rate. So what Uday is attempting to do is how do we reduce the cost of power that becomes available to DISCOM? How do we improve their returns? So if that happens, I think the DISCOMs become viable, and if they become viable, then we also stand to benefit. The lesser demand of coal is on account of lesser demand of power.
Right.
And it is not that there is no basic demand for energy.
No, absolutely.
There is.
Yeah.
But the intimidation happens through these DISCOMs who are in a very bad shape. Uday attempts to resolve that issue, and I think there is a very genuine effort to do that.
So do you believe that the power for all target that this government has articulated when it came to power is realistic by 2020, is achievable by 2020?
They are definitely moving towards that. What ultimately happens will be determined what happens ultimately. As I look at the processes that are put in place, we are fairly confident that we are moving in that direction. I remember about when I took over as coal secretary, people asked me this question, coal is in a total mess. Do you think that it will be sorted out in the next 2 years? It's been sorted out in less than 2 years. I would say the same for the power. I think the commitment levels are pretty high, and they are definitely moving in that direction. Ultimately, what happens, I or anybody doesn't have any control. But I think the processes that have been put in place, including that, Uday, it's definitely moving in that direction.
You know, I'm glad that you talked about how you've been able to turn things around in the last 2 years here at the Coal Ministry, and you've also spoken about how decision-making and, you know, we can call it policy paralysis or whatever, has often been a victim of what you call the 5 Cs. When you were at our event a month and a half ago, you talked about the 5 Cs, the CBI, the CVC, the CAG and the courts as sort of weighing down on decision-making within the government. Do you believe that there has been any improvement in the ability to take tough calls, to take calls that you feel maybe will be questioned tomorrow? Do you as a bureaucrat feel more comfortable today?
I have felt very comfortable always. I must confess that I have taken decisions that I had to take. In this case, in case of coal, it has been more so because of the support that I've got from all around, from the top, from everyone. I mean, there has been enormous amount of support. I must confess that I must have been arguably on the hottest seat in the country when I took over as Coal Secretary. And I must give it to the powers that be that I didn't get a single call from anybody to favor anyone. I could get away with what I wanted to do. And that is the freedom that enables you to take decisions. I was given that freedom. And one of the reasons why coal happened is on account of the freedom that was given to me and the team. I'm blessed with an amazing team.
Well, you know, you're lucky, but do you believe that without the requisite changes or the amendments to, for instance, the Prevention of Corruption Act, which is something that the Kelkar Committee has recommended as well when it talks about overhauling the PPP segment, do you believe that without the requisite amendments, it's going to be tough for bureaucrats to operate?
Certainly, it would be. Certainly. See, as I keep saying, in my case, I got all the support. There could be cases where such support may not be coming in the years to come. So we have to evolve an institutional mechanism to ensure that the civil servants, such honest and efficient civil servants, are protected when there are bona fide mistakes. That is imperative. I've been lucky so far. I may not be lucky in future.
So you said when you took over, you were on the hottest seat in the country. As you stand here today with the auctions over and done with, production at a record high, if I were to ask you, you know, what would be your key priorities, the 3 priorities that you believe you want to sort of focus on for the remainder of this calendar year, what would those be?
We are focusing on quality of coal. There have been a lot of complaints about the quality of coal that is supplied by Coal India. That's top priority for us. We've already put a regime in place. We are now moving ahead with only supplying of crushed coal, which will take care of the quality. That is priority number 1. Priority number 2 is, as I mentioned to you, we are pushing ahead with these coal washeries to ensure that only coal with lesser than 34% ash content goes out of the mines. And third priority is to ensure that the pilferages come down. There's a huge amount of pilferages in Coal India. Some steps have already been taken. You'll be surprised to know that now all our trucks are GPS tracked. And we know where they are, and that itself has brought down pilferage quite substantially. There are other steps in the offing, and we should be able to do that during this financial year.
You know, you started the program by talking about how you're an optimist and you believe that we are going to see a recovery across the board in the economy. How would you explain why it's taken so long for the economy to turn around? I mean, yes, we're growing at 7%, 7.5%. Yes, we are the fastest growing economy in the world. But if you talk to people on the ground, there continues to be, or at least has been, a crisis of confidence almost. Demand hasn't picked up as the government would have expected or liked. What would you attribute that to? High interest rates is just one of the issues. A broken private sector in terms of debt is perhaps another issue. But what would you attribute? What has really been, in a sense, a crisis of confidence?
Let us understand the ground reality. The ground reality is that India is a huge, diverse country. And there was a legacy of what was happening in the recent past. Now, to come out of that and to move as fast as you would want to, I think they're moving pretty fast. But it would be faster because now that the groundwork has been done, I would believe it should take off, and it's quite visible in the road sector. It is very visible in the railway sector. So in a country like ours, there's bound to be inertia to begin with. And to break that inertia and to get into momentum, it would take time. I think there was huge expectations. Probably as per that expectation, some people would feel that the government has not performed that well. But I would say they've done pretty well because they have got the inertia out. There are sectors which are moving, coal being one of them, railways, as I said, roadways. These sectors are coming and they will then trigger a greater movement in the economy.
Okay, so before I end, let me ask you, if I were to pin you down to what you believe has been the biggest achievement over the last 2 years, what would you say?
I think people have belief in themselves. When I look at Coal Ministry, when I look at Coal India, there's a spring in the step. And when you have belief in yourself, you are able to deliver. I think the biggest change has been the confidence that has come back.
Confidence is back. Anil Swarup, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us on CNBC TV 18. We appreciate your time and we wish you all the very best. And we hope that you get all the priorities that you just talked to us about underway. Thanks very much for joining us. With that, it is time for us to wrap up the CNBC TV 18 special, the performance appraisal of the Modi government. From all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.